Hello and good afternoon. Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I am one of your hosts, Mr. BoomStick XL. Folks, we have an absolutely outstanding three-topic show for you here today. We're going to be talking about a breakdown that comes the way of a blog from Bethesda, but of course, we have to thank where that blog came from, and it was posted by Okami13 underscore, who did a really solid write-up on exactly what's happening with Doom the Dark Ages, which releases, in next month, folks. Before you know it, we'll be playing that, and that game looks like to be a possible Game of the Year contender, along with many others. And, well, speaking of Game of the Year contenders, you cannot argue or discount how amazing Expedition 33 is. What a weekend for Xbox gamers. And I say that, not saying that Oblivion didn't release on PlayStation or Steam. It did. In fact, it had over 200,000 concurrent players over the weekend. Goes to show you that when a remake is done correctly, people show up in a big way. And Oblivion really showed why we as gamers appreciate going back to stuff as old as 2006. And obviously, well, here we are. But focusing on Expedition 33, folks, I don't know how many hours you personally have played. I just got to the second area and just added my third-party member. My God, I just keep taking picture after picture after picture. It's just such a stunning game. The music is astounding. The graphics are gorgeous. And to think that this was made by 30 people is just, it's astounding. And of course, topic number 3 is going to be one that is going to introduce some really bad press that comes the way of Marathon. Obviously, we had Tom Warren, who got a chance to play it. He put his thoughts out onto the socials. And basically, there were some good finite points, which we'll get into, though the overall feeling of it wasn't good. But that's not what we're going to focus on. I have a story here that was posted just moments ago, folks, by Paul Tassi. This comes the way of Forbes.com. And the lead title here, Fuzzy Belvedere, says Marathon should be delayed in the wake of its closed alpha. We did hear some things from rumblings. I've heard some things behind the scenes that the alpha had less people than Concord. I don't necessarily know how true that is because I don't have the numbers in front of me. But if in fact that is the case, that's not really a good thing for Bungie or Sony for that matter, because this is one of those gas games that they were depending on. But Fuzzy Belvedere, before we start breaking down all of this crazy news that started on Friday evening, how the heck are you, man? Welcome back. Happy Monday. Great to see you here, bro.
Oh, happy Monday. Glad to be here. Man, it's been an awesome week as far as gaming is concerned. Oblivion, Expedition 33, still trying to play a little bit of Blueprints as well. Yeah, there's a lot of games to get into, and man, we got some topics to get into because Marathon, I don't know. They all said that Bungie was the better acquisition than ABK, and
Indeed. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not looking that way, but
it's funny. The guy that said that no longer employed. Interestingly enough, Fuzzy Belvedere.
True. Maybe that was the nail in the coffin for him. They gave him the T-shirt, or took his button shirt. And he was left with a T-shirt and a cookie. So I don't know, but we got some fun stuff to get into today.
You know what? Let's open up on the positive side of things and let's talk Expedition 33, because look, this is going to be one of those conversations that's going to be a little bit wide open. We keep hearing the rhetoric on social media about rent versus buy. And of course, when that conversation comes into play, people are talking about Xbox Game Pass. I don't personally understand how this is even a thing. Like the value proposition is so obscene at this point that if you are not seeing it, it's because you want to console war, right? And you want to rah your favorite box. Listen, I'm not here to argue with anybody. If you love PlayStation, freaking that's awesome, man. Have as much fun as you would or as I would on Xbox or Switch 2, right? No one's here to yuck your yum. I want that to be clear. But I do think that there is something to be said about that not only being a false narrative, but of course, one of the other narratives is somehow or another, um, games going into Xbox Game Pass stifles sales for games. And if there's one thing that we know is not true, is well, it's that statement because Expedition 33 is a studio that is made up of 30 human beings. That's it, right? They put out a game. This is a passion project for the team. It has incredible story, music, set pieces, combat, graphics. I mean, it honestly has everything you could possibly want, and it didn't even have a $70 price point. Like this is one of those games I honestly believe, and it's not so much a topic today. I think we're going to revisit this maybe towards the end of the year. But I think Sandfall Interactive I believe that's who made the game, correct? I think that their development of this game, it's $50 million investment. Now, $50 is a lot of money, but when you consider games like Spider-Man 2, 315 million, right? We've seen big budgeted games, especially from Sony, because that's what they do, right? I think a game like this, through its investment into production, right? Response and overall graphics and quality really put the industry on notice. I think it's going to be hard to argue $150 million budget for a game anymore, because again, this game comes in at 49.99 for the regular version and 59.99 for the deluxe edition. And even at the deluxe edition price at $60, it's still not what Nintendo just did with 80. It's not 70 that was done when this generation started, a la the EAs and the Sony Interactive Entertainments and everyone else, right? This game comes $10 and $20 under, and the regular edition, again, if you just want to buy the game and play the game, it's $50. You're
Mhm.
talking about a $30 difference when you look at Nintendo Switch 2 games and a $20 difference when you look at everyone else's games. Again, not so much the topic today, but it had to be mentioned. Now, I do have something I want to bring into the conversation about the Xbox Game Pass narrative that's consistently being run out there. Now, obviously, Bucky, who is the community manager for Pal World. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
he is here, there, and everywhere, right? Like that guy is consistently on the socials. He's consistently updating what's going on with them versus Nintendo, and of course, all of the updates that come the way of Pal World and where you can play it, which is pretty much everywhere. So he put out a tweet. He actually put out two that I thought was incredibly interesting, and I want to bring it into the conversation because I really do believe, in my opinion, that it does kind of squash, or at least should squash, this buy versus rent ridiculousness. So Bucky from Pal World, who again he's the community manager, says Expedition 33 is the latest game to get unwillingly dragged through the gaming Twitter as people debate the viability for Xbox Game Pass. I feel like I've just a little more knowledge on the topic than most, so I'll just say yes. Yes, it's very worth having your game on Xbox Game Pass. And he goes on to say, because I would imagine that there were some people that were being a little, let's see, asshole-ish, if you will, for him defending Xbox Game Pass. Well, he goes on to say this very simply. I speak from the POV of an indie, by the way. I have no experience working in the AAA space, so I'm not sure what sort of deals are cooked up there. But we have shipped two games on Xbox Game Pass, and we are very happy with both. So all I can say is that I'm happy with the experience that I had. Another banger tweet, he goes on to say, but 20 plus notifications of people arguing every few minutes is silly. So now I'm going to have to mute it. And there you go. He says simply, he finishes all of that up with enjoy yourself, gamers. Now, again, Fuzzy Belvedere, this is one of those situations where it is. I don't understand the rent versus buy thing. I think that people are so hung up on saying that I bought a game versus getting a game in your service. And I'm just talking about the game itself. I'm not even making mention of the fact that, most games that I get through Xbox Game Pass, I buy the $30 upgrade. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's a $10 upgrade, kind of like South of Midnight. There was a $10 upgrade for 30 Expedition 33. But I went up buying the game. I bought the deluxe edition because I want to support the dev. They're a small team. I know they got the bag from Microsoft, but I wanted to help that team with their sales. So I bought the game. I'm supporting that game through purchasing it.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy it because I was somehow backed into the corner of buy versus rent. Folks, look, you can buy your games on Game Pass. If you get a game from there, you get it at a 10% discount. Again, you can go buy the game. But where I just kind of scratch my head with this is that, let's just say, for instance, you do get a game on Game Pass. Everyone's like, oh, it's going to leave eventually. Well, if it's a third party game, probably. But if it's a first party game from the 30 plus studios that Xbox has and owns, no, it's not going to leave. It's always going to be there, unlike PlayStation, which takes games out of their service on a regular basis, but no one ever says anything. Let's talk about rent versus buy and how something like Expedition 33, even though it's in Game Pass day and date, somehow sold over 1 million copies in 3 days across 3 platforms, continues to buzz about Game of the Year, and more importantly, has stolen the zeitgeist when it comes to talking about Xbox because Xbox teamed up with them, made this deal. It's in the service day and date. A lot of people are playing it through the service, as a lot of people do. Let's break it down, man.
Well, I just want to say, I guess a lot of people, like you said, forget that there is that option to buy. They forget that there's this option within this service. Which, granted, all right, Netflix doesn't have a option to buy. If you, depending on your Prime setup, you do have an option to buy or rent or go through streaming and stuff like that, at least to some extent, but not for everything. Some things are not available for purchase, which is weird. But when it comes to like Game Pass, look at it as like a car. After you lease the car for, let's say, 2 years, can you still buy it? Sure. Now, depending on the residual, you might be better off not buying it just for the fact that it's worth more, after the 2 years of use than what it would probably be to go ahead and buy it, type of thing. But there are plenty of cars now, especially considering some of the values fluctuate, where you lease a car for 2 years, you pay your money, which is roughly about the same. Yeah, you pay a lower monthly payment, but you may pay a slightly higher insurance payment and a few other things here and there as far as the upkeep of the car, and you're limited to mileage or whatever. But in a lot of cases, you might make out better leasing the car and then buying it at the end of the lease. Or what I've done in the past is lease the car, and then if it's a higher value than what the trade-in value would be, go ahead and sell it outright and then pocket that money, which basically gives me back my down payment and usually a little extra. So, but back to gaming. All of that being said, the thing I like the most about Game Pass is when it comes to a first party game, I can play it the day it releases. I don't have to wait. I don't have to worry about FOMO. I mean, the closest thing would be the upgrades, which in a lot of cases, if it's a game like Forza Horizon, I'm doing the upgrade for the extra cars, the extra cash, a few extra perks and things like that. But by the time I wind up buying it, I usually wait until it's written ready to be delisted. And at that point, well, in the past, they've given it away for free. So basically, you only paid the upgrade price and whatever your subscription was, but you weren't just getting that subscription for that one game. You were getting that subscription for all the games from Xbox, as well as a lot of the third parties that they put in there. So with that being said, you pay maybe $4.95 for the game. You did the $30 upgrade. You paid $35 for a $100 game that you had access to the same time as somebody buying it for $100. I don't see a problem with that. Me personally, looking at my pocket, I'd rather save that, $65 and put it towards something else than, pay the 100 and be like, oh, I own this game, but I could have paid less and still played it at the same time as it released. That's silly to me. But I've done that with a lot of games. A lot of games have it where if you do the upgrade, or let's say you don't wait, or you don't do the upgrade, or there is no upgrade as far as like early day access, your subscription fee is covering for hundreds of games, not an individual game. And then if you should choose to buy it, which I did this with Psychonauts 2, did this with South of Midnight, did this with what was it, the 12 I 12 minutes was what it was called. And there was a whole bunch of other
about that. Yes.
A whole bunch of other smaller games where it's like, I don't know if I want to buy this. And it's great to have that service to be able to try it out without it being a demo. You're able to play the full game, get your achievement points, get, your 1,000 gamer score and stuff on it. And at that point, if you like that game enough, you can go ahead and buy it at a discount. You're still in the grand scheme of things, because your subscription isn't for one game. You're still paying less than if you bought it day one. But I don't understand why people don't see that or realize that that's an option. If you're all about buying your games, that's great. How vocal are you to these gaming companies about your game that you quote unquote own just being a license? Because technically, if you read the user agreement, you don't own it. And there's a lot of games, even when they're completely on disc, that are useless to play offline. So I don't understand why they choose to do the rent versus buy argument as opposed to digital rights ownership. That would be a better argument. Instead of arguing amongst ourselves and going in this circular, roundabout for no reason, why don't we just push these companies to say, hey, I bought this game digitally. I'm looking at you, Ubisoft, and I want to continue playing it. If I own this console for 20 years later, I want to be able to still play this game without having to, jump through hoops. Like, you guys should be able to make it so the game is playable. That would be the better argument. If they were, the people that are all about this rent versus own were about that life, maybe I would be on board. But they're just talking about foolishness where you do still have the option to buy. They can choose not to, do the rental. I can choose not to buy. But in a lot of cases, when I choose to buy, I'm saving money from the get-go and playing it at the day it launches, as opposed to waiting until it's on sale. There's a lot of people that wait on until it's on sale. Is that worse? Or is that something that shouldn't be included in the argument? Support the devs. Why don't you support it when the game is released? Why did you wait 6 months until it was half price or whatever? But they're not about that either. So it's just foolishness to me. If you're against renting, good. Continue to buy your games. I don't understand why you would be so invested in an argument on something that you choose not to do.
Right.
I don't know. I have no affinity to want to skydive. I'm not running out there telling people it's foolish to skydive. You're risking your life. Why are you getting a perfectly good airplane and to jump out of it? That's the same foolish energy that you get from these people about renting when obviously they don't want to do it. So what is the argument about? But I don't know. It's silly to me. But getting to the whole grand scheme of things when it comes to developers, as we've heard, many developers, with maybe few exceptions, have had a good experience with Game Pass. The handful that didn't have a good experience with Game Pass either tried again with a different contract, because it seems like there's different approaches, whether it's upfront money or partial money upfront, and then you go ahead and have it where you're getting like residuals on how many downloads or how many active players. So with that freedom for the devs to choose what plan may work best for them, and if they think they got a solid game that is going to sell, it might be worthwhile taking some upfront money and then getting the residuals on the back end, right? Because you're still getting money as the game increases in popularity. And with Xbox, it doesn't seem like they're restricting you from selling it elsewhere. You can sell it at Steam or Epic or PlayStation or Switch or Nintendo, I should say. It doesn't seem like there's that detriment to their business model. What seems to be more of a detriment, which people seem to forget or ignore or choose to carry a blind eye to, is when there's exclusive deals on a player base that's, a lot larger than the norm, but then the game doesn't really get any traction. Hey, I'm looking at you, Square, and we see how that played out. We're seeing how they're now not about that life of putting exclusives on PlayStation because, hey, for those 75 million plus consoles or however many, and they're only selling 1 or 2 million copies, it's not in their best interest. That works out worse. But if they had made the game available and possibly put in Game Pass, they would have had some upfront money to kind of cover expenses as far as the production costs. Plus, they would be free to sell it elsewhere as well and probably make all of their money back and then some. But people keep on focusing on what they consider a negative that I don't know why they even bother. Like if there's a TV show that I don't like, I'm not sitting up there like, oh, this TV show sucks and continue watching it. No, I'm gonna change the channel or change what I'm streaming or pick a different movie to watch or do something else. But they insist, oh, I don't like renting games. You should own your games. And I'm gonna keep on arguing that point until I'm blue in the face, but for no reason. So foolishness is what it is. But I've rambled enough.
No, I actually want to add one additional context for something I learned from Fuzzy. He used to say all the time, I'm actually surprised you didn't use it, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, and if you are in the camp of rent versus buy and you are that adamant about, making yourself vocal, you're just looking like a boo, in my opinion. Like, you can buy your games, go buy them physically, go buy them digitally. But guess what? You can buy them on Xbox Game Pass at a discount. And or if you upgrade to a game, I don't know, like for instance, Doom: The Dark Ages, which we're going to get into in a second, you can get the $30 upgrade, play it. It's in Game Pass forever, folks. It's not going anywhere. And I think really, someone actually just said something in the chat here. Who was it? It was a really phenomenal point. Let me just see if I could find it. Someone, again, just shout out your name so because the chat's flying. They literally said that if PlayStation had day and date games, this wouldn't even be a conversation. And I think you're absolutely onto something. But the fact that, and again, this is where it gets a little tricky. Sony currently, Fuzzy, takes games out of their service, especially if there is a remaster remake coming out. That's something that they do. They did it with Spider-Man 1. They did it with The Last of Us. They did it with quite a few of them. They did it with God of War. So when they want to sell you some stuff, some old stuff, they take the stuff out of your service, which, by the way, went up in price. You're paying a premium, and you don't get the premium. You get some premium stuff, right? There are some day-and-date games in there, like Blueprints, happen to release on Game Pass and PlayStation at the same time, which is great for the developer. They took 2 bags rather than just 1. So it's a win, right? But the problem with day and date for Sony is I don't think that's ever going to happen personally. And the issue at hand would be, how long would they keep that game in the service? See, with Xbox, when a game like Doom, a game like Oblivion, a game like any of their first parties, they're going to be in their day and date. Now, does that apply to all second-party deals like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black? Is that always going to be in there? I honestly don't know, but you're going to get it in there for quite a while. Ninja Gaiden 4 is going to be in there for quite a while. How long does Expedition 33 stay in there? I honestly don't know because I don't have the contract in front of me, Fuzzy. But I think that when you're trying to use that, and I've seen it, and that's why I'm bringing it up. People are trying to use that as a part of their argument. I mean, my God, like I'm at a bit of a loss for words because apparently there is just no winning the argument, which I'm not trying to do. I'm not trying to win anything here. I'm winning as a consumer. I put a tweet out. I got a lot of really negative, nasty MFs in there when I said this is what gaming looks like. This is what winning looks like because I'm paid up until April 8th, 2028.
Yeah.
I mean, I've won, folks. I don't have to worry about games coming to Xbox Game Pass for 3 years. Yeah, I'm a winner, chicken dinner. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, that's what winning looks like. It's a value proposition, folks. It's a company that is a corporation that, yes, they want to make money. They want to make their investors happy, but they also want to keep their customers, and they're doing different things. And when you do different things for the Belvedere, you start to get a lot of hate. And obviously, the hate for Xbox Game Pass about it ruining the industry, it about getting gamers that no longer nobody wants to buy anything because they're so used to getting games for free. Folks, we are still paying for a service. I don't know. Any additional context before we get out of here?
There's just so many different layers. Like I think the biggest thing is I know that there were some that were talking about how Quantum Break had left, but that was due to like a death in a contracted thing that
Yes.
they had to redo, but it was put back pretty much immediately. It's not like they released a remaster at that time to resell you the game before putting it back in the service type of deal. But I think the grand scheme of things is that these gamers that are about the buy and not rent life, instead of enjoying the actual games, like I I don't care if people in the cul-de-sac that I'm in are renting versus me owning my house. I I don't care. I'm not out there like you should buy that house instead of renting. So I don't know if these people really are like that outside of gaming, or is this just some you know random thing that they want to focus on or hyper focus on, just because it makes no sense in other aspects of things where you can rent and you can buy, and they're not making any big to do about those things either. Like I look at it this way: what I paid for Game Pass, I think since 2017 up to now, has been just under $200 for 3 accounts of Game Pass Ultimate, and I'm good until what is it, March of 2028. So for $200, I have access for all those years. My sons have access on their PC and on their phone, and I have the same. And I still bought games. Like I've spent in the past 2 years, 3,500 with Steam. I usually average about 1,500 a year with Xbox and or PlayStation, a mix of games throughout the year. But I'm loading up more so on PC now, hopefully with the intention that Steam will be part of Xbox, so I'll have an even bigger library. But I'm still using Game Pass for what I choose to, test other games. Like if I was to, buy or pay for every game that I've played in the past year, I think I did the math. It was like over 6,000. I'm not spending $6,000 a year on games. I'm sorry. I am an enthusiast, but not that much of an enthusiast, especially when I have the opportunity to play a lot of those games through a service. But I still buy the games, or I still buy DLC, or I still buy accessories. So I'm more about putting my money where it matters most to me and where I get the most out of it. If buying is where you get the most out of your money, good on you. I'm going to continue to do a bit of both and pretty much kind of double my worth of money into my favorite hobby. And that's what I think we should all be focused on, is the hobby as opposed to how we get there. But that's another conversation for another day.
Well, great points all around. Shout out to the chat that's been very vocal about this. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We got to get to the super chats before we get into the Doom topic, because there is a lot to break down. Doom: The Dark Ages releases next month. Obviously, that is an Xbox Game Pass day and date. It's releasing on the Series X, the Series S, PS5, PS5 Pro, and of course, PC. Will it come to the Switch at some point? Who knows? But right now, those are the platforms. It is an Xbox Game Pass day and date. It does have a $30 upgrade if you want to upgrade, which I have already. No, I'm not buying that game. But you know what? Ultimately, I am buying the game because I'm buying the collector's edition because I really want that statue. So I'm going to have a physical edition copy, which I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe we'll do a giveaway for it. I don't know. We got to see. But yeah, I'm buying the game, but not because I feel like I have to buy the game to quote unquote support the $3 trillion company. I don't have to do that. They get my money through my service. But I definitely want that statue. That statue was dope, which I'm definitely getting. But let me catch up on super chats here, folks. There's been quite a few of them. The first gift of the day comes the way of a very generous friend of the program who has done this more times than I can remember counting for. That is Eris_EMS, folks. He has gifted 5 double barrel gaming memberships. Brother, that is incredibly generous of you. And Mrs. Boom and I cannot thank you enough for that generosity, brother. We super appreciate you being here. And thank you so much again. We have Adidas20 who drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, salute to Dr. Pepper and Fuzzy B. Salute to the chat. Salute to you, kind sir. Glad to see you here, and hope all is well. Music72 has been a channel member for a whopping 7 months, so thank you so much for the behind-the-scenes support, brother. He says, T.Y. Aris, of course, bring the boom, hardcore New York style, pause. But thank you so much, Music72, for the support, and of course, being here as you always are. LMNOPO, our generous friend of the program, drops an outstanding $5 super chat. He says, cross-buy and cross progression are the takeaways for consoles, PC, Game Pass ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, if you've noticed, a lot of their bigger games, and I think it's going to become a running trend, that the play anywhere thing, the cross buy, the cross save, the cross progression, that is going to become a standard for Xbox. That is why they're pushing the envelope of Xbox Play Anywhere. Basically, everything is going to be in Xbox, and I think they're doing the right thing. I think that the value proposition of Game Pass, the value proposition of just Xbox as a whole, is something that they want to push. And again, this just goes all the way back to the console sales thing. Listen, they've been struggling for years, and even quarter after quarter after quarter, Xbox has struggled to sell their consoles. And why is that? Is it because the consoles are no good? No, the consoles are great, especially the Series S, but they have this, you have the ability to play an Xbox game, especially on Xbox Game Pass, pretty much everywhere. So what does that ultimately do? It kind of lessens your consoles. They don't want to sell you the console unless you want to buy the console. What they want to do is get you into the service. And obviously, this is something that we talked about last week. Xbox themselves are predicting, of course, they could be wrong, like we all can, but they're predicting that by end of year, they're going to have 50 million subscribers, and they're going to continue to grow on that, and that's going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow through console. It's going to grow through PC, but it's also going to grow on handheld and potential places like your TV, where people are not going to buy a console and they're just going to want to play games through their TV. And they're supposedly, we've heard this, like this happened months ago. There's going to be multiple potential new tiers. We've been saying for a long time, they should have their own cloud tier, make it $10 and you can play all these games, make it $15. And then you don't need a console. You just need a controller that's wireless, and you go, and that's it. That's what it's all about. But thank you so much, LMNOPO. We had Scott Woodford, who's been a channel member for a whopping 9 months. Brother, thank you so much for the support. He says, happy Monday. Hope everyone is doing well, and be kind to each other. Indeed, absolutely, being kind is what it's all about. We can have our opinions. I know the console warriors are going to console war, but we don't have to be nasty. We don't have to treat people, egregiously to kind of get your point across. Thank you for that, brother. Pug Master, the Supreme. Welcome to the chat, brother, and thank you so much for the very generous $5 super chat. And says, weirdos want to act above renting when talking about Game Pass and forget they used to be a brick and mortar rental shops. Game Pass is value. Indeed, it is. Anyone that suggests otherwise, Pug Master, they're just lying. I think it's hard to argue, especially if you just look at the week that Xbox just had. Again, I understand that Oblivion is a 20-year-old game, but come on. You saw me. I've been putting pictures left, right, and center. The game looks brand new, and it plays brand new, and it's amazing. That's in Game Pass day and date. Expedition 33, one of the hottest games to release this year. It's gotten so much buzz. Everyone's talking about Game of the Year potentially. That's in Game Pass day and date. Just a couple of weeks before, you had another Game of the Year indie title, Blueprints. It's just Xbox gamers just keep getting so many games to the point where we're just like, I can't keep up. Like, you have to like pick a game and go. I tried to play over the weekend both Oblivion and Expedition 33, and it's impossible. It's impossible to do. So I'm going to come back to Oblivion at some point. I'm just steamrolling through and very much enjoying Expedition 33 right now. But that was a part of my service. We also have here Game Seeker, who has gifted one Double Barrel Gaming membership. Game Seeker, welcome to the program, kind sir, and thank you so much for the generosity. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's get into this post from Okami13 underscore, who is someone that not only you should be following on the socials, but you should be subscribed to his YouTube channel. He is growing his channel. I've been talking with him for quite a bit. The last couple of weeks, we've been, going back and forth in the DMs, and he is going to be a guest here. We're just trying to iron out the schedules. We're just very busy, and he's going to be a guest appearing here, and we're going to help promote his channel because he does do incredible reviews and write-ups, and I'd like to see him get to the 1K because he's not currently under it. So obviously we'll make a big announcement when he's going to join us, but I am going to add this tweet specifically to the show notes. So if you want to go check it out yourself, you can. But this is what Doom the Dark Ages is bringing to us in a couple of weeks, and these are all the new details on the Cosmic Realm plus some more. And once again, thanks to Okami13 for this post. It goes on to say that Doom the Dark Ages has 22 levels, Fuzzy. According to the post, best Doom game we've ever made, that is coming directly from Bethesda. New innovations like the shield saw and 3 melee weapons, huge worlds, including the Cosmic Realm, a totally unique Lovecraftian style type of area that is new to the franchise. An unholy union between hell and the Cosmic Realm has been formed, giving birth to new enemy types that they have not shown as of yet, which is dope. The biggest demons were that have ever been created in a Doom game are in Doom the Dark Ages. They have a new weapon called the Reaver Chain Shot, an iron mace on a chain that you can fire at enemies. Fire it quickly for a light attack, or hold it down to charge it for charge its chaos sphere. New types of enemies like the Cosmic Baron, the Kokoda, I think it's Kokoa Demon, which I've never heard of before, and more. New vision of the ID Tech engine allows for bigger spaces with longer view, so it's going to be more wide open. Again, I don't know. I don't want to call it an open world. It's probably an open hub, but supposedly this is the biggest Doom yet. It goes on to say that they're going to have ray traced lighting on consoles and PC, buttery smooth 60 frames per second on PS5. I would imagine that is going to be on Xbox as well. This game will play every bit as good as it looks, according to this, and it's releasing May 15th on PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. And, well, I mean, look, there's an entire blog post that breaks all of this down. It is on the PlayStation blog post, by the way. And I saw some people in the chat asking, why do they have marketing? Folks, they don't have marketing. The marketing you saw at WrestleMania was promoting the game. Everything about that marketing was about Xbox. So you kept hearing was Xbox, Xbox, and more importantly, Xbox Game Pass. This is a post from the PlayStation blog. Obviously, it's a multi-plat game. And I think that the reason why you're seeing this, Fuzzy Belvedere, is because of the Game Pass effect, right? Like, this is being sold as a day-and-day game on Game Pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is going to play this game. Maybe they're going to buy the game. I don't know. But they're going to play it via Game Pass, potentially upgrade. I think Sony has to do these articles because very similar to when the marketing has been really heavy on PlayStation, you'll have actual normies or the casual gamers be like, yeah, that's a PlayStation exclusive. So if PlayStation doesn't do a blog post and the normies see all of this advertising with Xbox Game Pass, they're going to think that it's an exclusive, and they're probably going to buy it there, or maybe go out and buy an Xbox if they already have a PlayStation 5. It's possible, but that's how marketing works. So I don't think it's a bad thing to see the PlayStation blog talking about a game that's available everywhere, but I think ultimately they have to do it. Let's get your thoughts on some of the breakdowns for Doom the Dark Ages, man.
Oh, the breakdown was awesome as far as like that realm setup where you're fighting different types of bosses for upgraded weapons and gear and things along those lines. But as far as the marketing, I understand from an optics standpoint, it might seem a little weird, but like you said, just like they've done in the past where everything about Destiny was shown on the PlayStation YouTube, and there was only
Yes.
like maybe 2 videos to their 10 for Destiny on Xbox's channel. So uh, I don't think we're at the point where we have to worry about it, especially if you're a Game Pass subscriber or on the platform. You've already seen the direct. And yeah, that was like shown universally. Anybody can watch that, but it's on the Xbox channel. You don't see the direct on PlayStation's channel. So having something that goes into a little bit more depth, I think is a worthwhile venture because if you're going to have that game over there and that place, well, it looks like, at least for initial numbers when it comes to Indiana Jones and when it comes to Forza Horizon, it looks like they're buying the games at a higher rate. But then again, I would expect that considering they have what probably close to, well, not necessarily close to double, but they have a good bit more player base on PS5. So show it there, show that it's available there, and those customers will, hopefully be interested enough in buying it. When it comes to Xbox, we've already seen the Dev Direct. It's already on our YouTube channel. The Realms was like a separate thing that they're showing over there to kind of, I guess, build some of the hype for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a video going into even more depth on the Xbox channel, similar to how they did the direct in like a week or two or a week prior to the game's release. So I'm not worried about a video that's on YouTube, that's on PlayStation's channel when the game is actually coming to Xbox and all of that content comes to Xbox. What I would be worried about would be if the game was only on PlayStation at that point, being a studio owned by Xbox. Like after the
Yes.
whole acquisition, they had those two agreements on what was it, Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ghostwire Tokyo. Yes.
And after that, they haven't had any more of their studios make exclusives for PlayStation. That would be the only time I would worry. So a video on PlayStation's channel that's not on Xbox's channel, I'm not that worried. All I know is I'm getting it day one in Game Pass, and with that, we'll still have access to that same content. There's no, although they say there's no special privileges as far as content between the platforms, but if you have Game Pass and you're, especially Ultimate, and you're aware of the perks within Game Pass Ultimate, you've seen a lot of these free to play games as well as some Call of Duty, some what else? Diablo stuff and things like that, where you're able to get content that's not over on the other platforms for free
Yes.
through your perks. So until they start doing perks for PlayStation, I'm not worried. So but it is cool seeing how they're building up the momentum for this game. Usually they wait 2 weeks until a game to really ramp things up, but Doom is a bigger game than that. So they're going to start, ramping things up. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see either something this week or next week, in more detail about the game. It's coming out the 15th. So yeah,
Yep.
they have some time to put out some more videos, which I'm pretty sure they will. And we'll get to see some more gameplay more than likely. And launch day, we'll see some streamed stuff probably from the Bethesda channel on Twitch and stuff like that. But yeah, it's cool to see that they have this new type of mode so you can get additional or better weaponry in the game from it and stuff like that. And for those that just want to do like not really horde mode, but things along those lines, you have, stuff that you can kind of, mess around with outside of the main story quest line and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there is a lot to get excited about. Again, it's just one of those conversations that just make you scratch your head. Look, I'm because I know that Okami said that it's going to run at 60 frames per second on PlayStation. I don't know. He wasn't being trolly, folks. The kid is legit. It's just he didn't add Xbox. So just so we're clear, I'm at the actual Xbox breakdown of what this game is going to have via the Series X and the Series S. And it's going to have 4K Ultra HD, HDR10. It is a single player game. Yes, we know that. It's also going to have VRR, which is awesome. Ray tracing, 60 FPS plus. So you might be able to get this thing running at 120 frames on the Series S. The X, we'll see. It's going to have spatial sound, as well as Dolby Atmos sound as well. It's optimized for the Xbox Series X and S. You can use, obviously, PC gamepad, and it is also another Xbox Play Anywhere title. So any doubts to the sound or any doubts to the the FPSs on this thing, it's going to run 60 frames plus, and I would imagine that you could see it run upwards of 120 frames on the Series X. That makes sense to me because Halo is running at 120 frames per second. I would imagine that Doom will be able to run at 120 frames as well. I mean, look, again, Game Pass day and date, very, very exciting there. Buy the $30 upgrade. And again, folks, don't feel pressured to quote unquote rent the game. It's going to be in Game Pass forever. It's a first party title. You win, gamer, whoever you are. But you know what? Again, this is, I think, already going to be one of the most stacked years for Game of the Year, and not just on Xbox. I think that Ghost of Yotai, that last video that popped up last week, I know a lot of people are going to throw the virtual tomatoes. That game looks really good, man, and it looks way better than it originally showed. Now, is it going to be a Game of the Year title? I don't know, probably. But there are so many games, at least from the Xbox side of things, that could be in that ranking. I mean, again, for me, as great as Oblivion is, and it looks great and it's running great, my game of the year currently is Avowed. Now, that's slowly slipping a little bit because of Expedition 33. That is not an Xbox game. That is a multi-plat, but that's also a phenomenal game that is in Xbox Game Pass. Again, don't be thrown by it just being only turn-based, because the combat is so unique that it's turn-based, yes, but not only turn-based. I definitely would say give it a shot if you have Xbox Game Pass, and if you don't like it, just delete it from your hard drive. It's super easy. But let's catch up on super chats, and then Fuzzy Belvedere. I want to get into Marathon because it came out and a lot of people played it and a lot of people walked away with it. Not that it was a bad game, but it was okay. I don't know if an okay Bungie game is what anyone is asking for. I don't think any of us are. I certainly have not asked for an extraction shooter. That is something that they went with. I am not going to play this game at all. I know that there's been a lot of talk about the solo aspect of the game needing to be tightened up for launch, because you can play the game solo if you want, but then you're going to run into teams of 3, and good luck, Charlie Brown. You're going to get smoked. Now we have a couple of reports that we're going to bring into the conversation, and one of which I think is incredibly damning, and that's the one from Paul Tassi that was posted moments before the show went live. I will read it verbatim, folks. It just does not look good for this game. I am already starting to see people compare it to Concord, which is not something you want to be compared to. That game came out and it's probably one of the biggest black eye Sony Interactive Entertainment will ever have. I don't think you'll ever see them make this kind of mistake again. And this was a pretty bad one. And of course, they own Bungie. And even though it's a multi-plat, they are depending on this game, Fuzzy Belvedere, to do big dividends in the gas game market. I don't know, man, but we're going to get into it. But let me just thank, we have Ultraman, who has been nice enough to drop a $5 super chat. Ultraman goes on to say, "Hey, Boom and Fuzzy, been playing Forza Horizon 5 on my Xbox, LOL." Yeah, I mean, as anyone playing the update, I know Fuzzy's definitely played it. I've tried it. It's really good. I got to record some footage, and you know what? Again, I got to make sure that I'm turning right because people are gonna say I drive terrible. I don't drive terrible, folks. It's not me. It's the game. But we have Gaming Nerd Austria, who's been a channel member for, wow, 25 months, dude. Thank you so much for the generosity. He says, "Hey, Boom and Fuzzy, Doom guy, a long time no see. Isn't it great to be an Xbox gamer nowadays? Have a great day and keep up the style of your podcast." Well, thank you so much for the generosity and, of course, the very kind words. Happy to see you back here, brother. And yeah, it is absolutely a great time to be an Xbox gamer because right now we are winning and we are eating super well. We have a generous friend of the program, Do You K Now, the Broke Boy Insider, drops not one but $2 super chats. And the first one is 15 hours of Expedition 33 since Friday. I'm hooked. Yeah, I just got to the second world, which is the underwater world, which is dope. And I just got my third party member and I had to stop because life doesn't stop. You gotta, just I can't wait to get back to it. We also have an additional $2 super chat says also Expedition 33 had a deluxe upgrade at launch. Indeed, it was $10 and you could upgrade or you could be like me and just buy the upgraded version. I paid the $60. I'm happy to pay it because I want to support the studio. But man, Fuzzy, let's get into this Paul Tassi article because again, the lukewarm response started over the weekend, and that was Tom Warren. So you know what? Let's start in proper order. So Tom Warren, and I will link this story as well as Paul Tassi's, because we got to give credit where credit is due. I don't agree with both these gentlemen all the time, but I do think that they do bring a certain flair to games journalism. I definitely like Tom. I'm not saying I don't like Paul, but Paul sometimes says things, and I don't know if he's being facetious or he's just trying to rage bait people. But sometimes I think he gets it wrong. But we're going to still give credit where credit is due. Here we go. As posted by Tom Warren, this is what he had to say, ladies and gentlemen. I played enough of Marathon, and I have some brief thoughts. And these are the four positives. The gunplay is classic Bungie, and it feels great. Now, that's not surprising because Bungie makes some of the best gunplay in gaming. There is plenty of PvP if you go looking for it. The AI enemies are rather clever and well equipped, and the inside environments look gorgeous. Now, this is where he has the negatives. He says the outside environments need some work. It often feels like I'm playing Apex Legends, an Apex Legends extraction shooter, but with a stamina system that makes movement feel clunky. The gameplay loop isn't compelling enough to make me want to play this over the other shooters that are currently available. You see, that point in itself is a real problem. So let's get into the again, folks. This was dropped by Paul Tassi of Forbes.com. It was posted moments before we went live, and it goes on to say this: Marathon should be delayed in the wake of its closed alpha. Yikes. I'm going to read verbatim from the article, folks, so bear with me. It goes on to say this: Marathon is now on its 6th day of its closed alpha. The test featuring tens of thousands of players, with many more than that still are waiting to be let in. But even as a new code has been issued and more are coming today or later today, over this incredibly short period of time, interest has dropped dramatically. Now less than 25% of what was available on launch day was playable. The numbers falling each consecutive day, even over the weekend when those figures would normally surge. That may change with more codes issued today, but again, we've already had one wave of that, and it didn't change the game's trajectory. So this is where Paul gets a little pointed. He says, "Now I'm going to stop you right there. If you're about to say, well, this is an alpha, don't you know what an alpha is? But the expectations I'm seeing from this group are too high. People are mixing up what being an alpha is compared to being an alpha preview. I'm even hearing people citing the GTA 6 leaks as some sort of evidence that gamers don't understand development. Generally, this is true, but if you think this is current closed alpha is comparable to a leak of a years old footage of an undeveloped game, that is not what it is. Bungie has already told us what is coming: visual polish, sandbox balancing, new gear, two new heroes, one new map. If you think there is some secret 50% of the game that Bungie isn't talking about or that's coming at launch, I have some bad news for you. Fuzzy, look, again, I've said this openly before we even started reading Paul's article. Him and I don't agree on a lot of things. I'm not saying he's right here. I'm not saying he's wrong here. He's obviously played the game. But this is coming off the heels of Tom Warren, and this is coming off of the heels of several things that we've heard in the background. Look, I think that this game is in trouble. Just based on some of the people that I've talked to that had hands on. We're reading two different viewpoints, one from Tom and of course one from Paul, and they don't sound promising. They sound like there is a huge uphill battle to win, and I don't think they're going to win, bro. And here's the problem. Ultimately, we still don't know the final price of this game. This is a premium priced game. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Is premium $50? Is premium $70? Because I don't think I would consider $40 premium. I would think $40 is half of what a game is going to cost moving forward with the Switch 2, and potentially what we could see happen at the end of the year with like a GTA 6 or even a Ghost of Yotai being the first $80 game. But premium is what the wording that Bungie used. They use that. And if you consider how important this game is for Bungie as a company, and you consider how important this game is supposed to be as a gas game for Sony, I'm here to tell you, I don't have any confidence. And I don't know. I mean, we keep hearing the comparisons to Concord, and I don't know if they're just being, trolly or there is some truth here. Fuzzy, let's try and break this down.
Okay, I'm going to start this off by stating I have not played the alpha. I submitted for a request for a key and have yet to get one. Who knows? We'll see. But all of that aside, my extraction shooter base goes to one that everybody probably knows as an extraction shooter and one that people forgot was an extraction shooter. That's The Division, and that's Escape from Tarkov. Two different games. They have some overlap and similarities, but with The Division, the key difference being you don't lose your gear that you brought into the extraction zone. You only lose what you picked up within the extraction zone. So it's a lot more approachable for a player base, and probably in the grand scheme of things would have worked out better for Marathon, but we'll get to that in a minute. When it comes to Escape from Tarkov, I think they sold somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 units or copies. Now, some of those are rebuys as far as for, banned accounts for cheating and whatnot. Some of them were gift accounts and such. Like I bought accounts for my sons as well as one for myself. And then there's the aspect of when they do a wipe, how many people hop back in. Now, with the exception of just before arenas, they were averaging something like 280 to 300,000 hopping back in. So about half the player base of what they sold would hop back in after each wipe. And typically you would see a larger number when there's a big content expansion. Like I think, I forget the name of the town now, but like Exchange. And then I think when they did the expansion on Lighthouse, those brought in a lot of players, but Arena was the big thing that brought in a lot of players. The key thing with that game, you have an option to play as a scav, which is like basically you're playing like an NPC. You get gifted random stuff that you can extract with if you don't get killed by the actual players that are trying to extract. And it's a way that you can earn money to replay some of the gear. So if you're playing terribly at it, and you keep on losing, your starter gear or whatever the case may be, and you run out of money by that point, you have to play as a scav, which is like a pseudo NPC like player, thrown into the world. But once again, that's a way to kind of recoup things. They made mention that there's going to be like faction gifts, which I'm assuming like if you, whichever runner you choose or class you choose, maybe that faction winds up donating based on your need some weapons for or some basic gear for you to go ahead and enter into the zone. But I think the big thing is this is still a niche genre, and Bungie is trying to make it mainstream, and it doesn't seem like they've made it appealing to mainstream. Now, one of the key things that, at least with Escape from Tarkov, the story stays the same each and every time as far as the quests that you need to do. So for seasoned players, they already know A to B, how to unlock certain vendors, how to get access to those vendors and be able to get certain items so they can either, farm Bitcoins or other things. They already have a system of how to level themselves up to, get to the quote unquote end game or the end game level. When it comes to the average player, they're probably going to be a Timmy that gets, axed each and every time they enter the zone until, the tryhards basically, have gotten to a certain point, and then they kind of focus on other stuff at that point. But you're going to have campers at extraction points. You're going to have snipers that just want to ruin people's day, and they're going to have to figure out a way for you to, be able to bounce back, because after you lose your gear 2 or 3 times or lose the money for what you've spent in gear, you're probably not going to want to play anymore if there isn't an option to either one, do the same to other people's, game where you kind of, make it more difficult or ruin it for them, or at least have an option to, avoid certain combat by sneaking around, getting certain items and extracting. Like, I guess the big thing is this game hasn't had enough lifespan for people to figure that out. Like, hey, I just want to go in, get this. Well, in Tarkov, you'd be going for, like, let's say a video card or something like that. This game may not have that. That's going to appeal to the masses, where it's like they know to do that mission or that quest, get the stuff, and then get the heck out of there. You hear gunfire, you go the opposite way, kind of thing. But initially with this game, I have a feeling that people are going to hear gunfire and want to run to it, and then realize, oh, wait, maybe the NPCs that are crafty can be a bit overpowered. Like in Tarkov, there is some questions on some of their bosses that roam the map, with them being aimbots, basically. If you see them first, you have a chance. If they see you first, you're already head eyes and you're wondering why. Oh, Tequila, domed you kind of deal. But it's this genre is not for everyone. I encourage people to try it to see if it's something that you might be interested in. If the early days of the Division, before people were basically everybody going rogue kind of thing, was somewhat fun, I would say it's probably worth a try. Although not having proximity chat kind of sucks. I get it. The whole, vulgar language or toxicity and stuff like that. But proximity chat, I think, would help matters where possibly 2 teams of 3 could work together, or a bunch of solos can, pair up, because that's one of the things that a lot of people wind up doing in Tarkov. If you go in solo, sometimes a solo can outdo those 3 with a good, well-timed or well-placed grenade kind of deal. But all of that aside, I don't know what Sony's tolerance level is going to be for this game. We saw with Concord, they didn't have any patience. It didn't do the numbers that they were hoping within the first 24 to 48 hours, and they pulled the plug, within 8 days. I'm hoping they're a little bit more tolerant to give Bungie maybe a year, because as I played, vanilla Destiny when it first came out, and once I made it to a certain level, it sucked because there really wasn't much to do. And I was able to have more free time than some of my crew. So it just became a little bit boring until I guess it was Witch Queen or something like that came out. So it's Bungie's going to probably need time to, work on things to keep it interesting or to keep it relevant to some extent to the player base. and they're going to have to take honest feedback because
Yeah.
not having a single player, or I don't think they necessarily have to have a single player, but it would be something to consider. Like just like the division, you have the dark zone, you have what I consider the light zone, which is the PVE only area. And even if they only intertwine where you're doing like reconnaissance for the PvE area, or you're throwing health kits out for your faction or whatever over, certain walls, or delivering them to that checkpoint or something. They should really consider something that might keep people invested, where you have an alternative to get weaponry to go back in there. May not be the best of gear, but at least enough starter gear where you can probably start going in, kill some NPCs, not make a big fuss, get a couple of things for your quests, and then extract and be done. But I don't know. I kind of feel Bungie is going in this the way EA did with Anthem, and they don't want to look at shooters that that did things to keep their players coming back, that might work for this game that they're doing a little bit differently. I mean, the good thing is it sounds like cosmetics carry over after wipe, which is one of the things that Tarkov doesn't do and kind of pisses me off. But it took a while for the developer to realize that not having a single player mode to kind of get used to the maps was a thing well needed, because you're not going to get a lot of new players that don't have an opportunity to at least get used to the map if they get killed within the first 2 minutes every time they come in to or queue into a match type of thing. But best of luck to Bungie. It's not sounding good. Honestly, I didn't think that this was going to do well out the gate, but I'm hopeful that Sony is patient enough to give Bungie time and doesn't pull the plug instantly like they did with Firewalk and Concord. And maybe this winds up being that first mainstream game or bigger mainstream game for extraction shooters. And they have plenty of time before Division 3 comes out, so they can get their act together before then. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe even having a mode where you keep some of your actual bots gear, or the inputs or inserts or whatever, as opposed to the weapon that you brought in, or maybe you lose the shield in the weapon, but you keep some of the motorized stuff in your avatar or whatever. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't sound like this game is going to. One, it doesn't sound like it's going to set the world on fire, and two, it doesn't sound like it's going to probably have the staying power of something like an Apex Legends or Marvel Rivals, or even Overwatch 2 for that matter. Even though, yes, those are totally different genres. I mean, even with Escape from Tarkov, I don't even know if they have the pull. I mean, they have the fans of Bungie and their previous work, but I don't know if they'll be able to maintain, or if it will be sufficient enough maintaining 200,000 each wipe to keep them engaged in this game. And if that's not enough players, I think they should probably cut their losses before it even releases at this point, if that's the case. But we'll see.
I think the sticking point here, look, folks, it's Bungie, right? Maybe Destiny isn't your thing. Destiny was my thing. I very much enjoyed Destiny 1. The Taken King is when they really, the rubber hit the road, so to speak, for them, and that was amazing, right? Obviously, 2, only held me for the first couple of expansions. After I haven't played it in years, because there's only so many of those types of games I could play, and I was playing that and the Division at the same time. Very, very, very difficult to do. So Bungie is a talented studio, but hold on a second. Let me just add an asterisk to that. Okay, they do make some of the best shooting in gaming. That's an absolute fact. It is unbelievable how good their shooting feels. That was one of the high points on the conversation that I read to you verbatim. But here's the asterisk. Okay, a lot of that team that made Destiny 1 and 2 no longer work at the studio. And the more you start to hear about some of the things that are happening with this game, you start to wonder is there going to be comparisons at some point to BioWare? BioWare is a shell of its former self. That's because most of the staffers from old school BioWare are gone. I think that is something to be said about who's left at Bungie. They lost a lot of they had a massive retention problem after some of the things that were going on behind the scenes came out. People left in droves. So who's making this? New developers probably. So they do have that I guess betting against them, Fuzzy. It's not the same team that made Destiny 1 and 2. Does it have some people that worked on those games? Sure. But this is also an abstraction shooter, which is an incredibly it's not the most popular of genres. It's just not. So again, we're gonna see how this all plays out. But Paul Tassi, I mean, again, I read you the headline. This game should be delayed, and I thought it was going to be delayed until next year. And then they surprised everyone, said, "No, no, we're ready to go." Well, that ready to go aspect makes you wonder why there are only 4 heroes to pick from. Right? There are only so many game maps. Again, this does not sound good because they use the word premium price. Now, I originally thought it was locked in at $40. Apparently, I was wrong. It's the suggested price. That's what we keep hearing. They keep saying premium price. Premium price isn't $40. Acceptable price is $40. Get into the game is $40. Premium sounds like there's a $50 version of this or a $60 version of this. If this game comes out Fuzzy for $60, it's gonna die day and date. That's it. No one's gonna buy this game for $60. But again, we will see what happens. Time is only gonna tell. The more that they build from the alpha into the beta, I'm not gonna play it personally. I don't do extraction shooters. Yes, I like the Division. Yes, I've spent some time in the Dark Zone. But yeah, that camping and just waiting for people to be like D's, just not my bag. You know what I'm saying? The aggravation of spending 2 or 3 hours in the Dark Zone collecting all this gear to then die 5 seconds right before the freaking helicopter's supposed to land. No, I'm not about that life. I don't have that much time in the day, so those games are definitely not for me. But I'm still excited for the new content coming to the Division, and that's single player. But we'll see. Cheese is nasty says $60. I don't know what
I've
the
heard
price
the
is gonna.
same.
What's that?
I've heard the same. Like when everybody was saying 40, 2 people that are within the walls of PlayStation, one at Bungie, it's not 70, it's not 40, but that could change.
Well, I think
And
it's going to have to change just based on the way people are talking about the game now. And I think that if they are trying to push the envelope with, quote unquote value, $60 ain't it. Sorry. That's just not going to cut the mustard. When you're going up against Apex Legends and games like Fortnite and games like Marvel Rivals that do have a free to play game, you can literally play those games for free. Will you spend money? Well, that's entirely up to you. But a lot of these kids that play Fortnite buy 1 or 2 skins, right? Maybe they buy 10 skins, but they're buying it for the skins. They're not buying the game, and that's the whole drive with those types of games. When you're going up against established franchises like Apex Legends, like Call of Duty Warzone, like Fortnite, like Marvel Rivals, which is again they kind of hit a little bit of a snag in season 2, but the game is still popular as F. Those are some heavy hitters in multiplayer. I don't think Marathon stands a chance, in my personal opinion, just based on what we're hearing. But we will see, folks. Let me catch up on the last couple of super chats if there are any, and then we will get everyone out of here. We have Roshan Impenger drops a very generous $5 super chat. Roshan goes on to say, "This Doom thing is frustrating because." MS shows Sony on its videos Sony shows only their platform. Microsoft should force showing the platform Rake stepped on. I mean, they don't have a marketing deal. The game is available. It's a multi-plat. Sony's going to only show for Sony. That's just that's what they're going to do. Xbox is the platform owner, and of course, when they do show it, it's because it's everywhere. They have to show it as it's a Bethesda thing. It's multi-plat. That I see why you're upset about it, but it's not something that they're doing to be egregious or give Sony more credit. It's Sony is showing it on their platform. Of course, Sony's only going to say PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro. But when Bethesda does it, I mean, they're owned by Microsoft, but this is a third party published game. They have to show all of the consoles it's available for. If you go to the Xbox channel and you watch the video there, it's only going to say Xbox. If you go to the Bethesda one, it's going to show all the consoles. But needless to say, I want to thank everybody for the generous support through channel membership and through all of the gifted subs, as well as people that remain subscribed to the channel through the membership. Mrs. Boom and I are incredibly grateful for the generosity. Let's get everyone out of here. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand, but not just your brand. We're going to sell the Mrs. brand as well, because you and your YouTube channel is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. And with the new update to Forza Horizon 5, I would imagine that you have a lot to say. But your wife also has a horror podcast called Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sell the brands, brother. Where can they subscribe to both of your YouTube channels? But more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Well, as always, love being on here in the afternoon, getting to talk about the gaming news for the week, as well as everything that happened the previous week. And yeah, this is like the best time to be a gamer, not just any gamer, but an Xbox gamer, especially one that's subscribed to Game Pass. This is pretty much what we've been asking for years, where instead of it just being one game a quarter, we're getting several games a month kind of thing. And it's
crazy.
A great time at this point. But yeah, love the interactions with everybody in the chat. Greatly appreciate you guys coming out and supporting us. Don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate it. I put the link for my YouTube as well as my wife's YouTube in the chat. We'll definitely be talking about the realms as far as ways to get additional achievement points, as well as new cars, as well as some cars you may have missed in previous seasons and things like that. But as far as the movie for this Friday, I believe it's called Getaway, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. Yeah, Getaway from 2024 has a guy from Shaun of the Dead. It's going to be an interesting conversation this Friday. It's not a AAA movie, but it's going to be a good one. If you're a fan of Shaun of the Dead, you'll probably like this one as well. So definitely check it out. But man, play some games, enjoy this hobby, be safe this week, and I guess tune out from social media to some extent and dedicate more of that time to gaming. You'll thank me for it. But that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, look, you're a PlayStation gamer, right? And you want to buy your games, please buy your games. You can do that. What we try to promote here is in a world. It's not like I'm ready to do a trailer. The world is what it is, folks. And again, I'm not going to get into eggs or bacon or cream cheese, so don't worry. But gaming is an expensive hobby, and when you look at the value proposition that is being offered to you by Xbox, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, it's really hard to argue the point. Like I understand the console warrior mentality that you want your box to be the best box in the world, and that's fine. If you are a PlayStation or Nintendo player, enjoy your console, go buy your games. But I find it very egregious and more so disingenuous when there are several people that come to the show that clip us, that are on the socials, that somehow saying that we're trying to sell the brand for Microsoft. Folks, we don't get anything from Microsoft. I do get codes, but that's because the channel is big enough that they feel that our reviews are relevant. That's not because we are that we're trying to cap for the for Xbox Game Pass. I'm telling you this as a human being who's retired and who has a pension that's fantastic, but does have a ceiling. So when I tell you you should get into Xbox Game Pass, not because I'm getting Game Pass for free from Microsoft to try and sell it to you. I'm telling you as a human that has a who's retired, that has more responsibilities outside of gaming, and that I'm here to tell you personally, it allows for me to do other things, buy season passes, go into Call of Duty and buy a skin, go into another game and buy DLC, or buy a game on another console. Let's say, like for instance, Ghost of Yotai or the Mario Kart World. That I don't have to buy the games on Game Pass. They're in my service. I tell you this not only as a content creator, but as one of you folks. I'm a gamer just like you. We're not capping for the man, right? We're simply telling you that this is a great deal. And of course, people are going to argue that and talk about rental pass or welfare pass, whatever they're going to say. Folks, I got news for you. If you're saying any of those things, gaming is the last thing you should be worried about. You should be sitting down on a couch with somebody to work out those feelings, because I've seen some real nasty MFs. Not so much in this chat, because we have Lethal Papa here walking silently and carrying a band stick. So if you get out of line, he just bans you. And that's awesome. But I am going to say that the consistently about welfare pass and renting pass, and folks, my God, if that's your argument, you've already lost, ladies and gentlemen. And that's not the fine folks that we have here in the chat. That's the trolls of the universe that just got nothing better to do with them. Folks, just block and move on. That's what I do. When people expose themselves to me on the socials, pause, I just block them. So that's what you should do. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to all of these super chats once again, and the channel member chats that continue to come in to support the channel. And of course, we're going to close out today's show with something that's incredibly important to me, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.